Hey everybody, welcome back to the Kurland Community Connection. It's 5 o'clock on a Tuesday. This show I am really excited about. Everything that's happening in the news, I couldn't think of a better guest. I want you to meet, if you haven't already, Matt Benson or Matthew Benson. I'm going to ask him what he prefers. I think I'm going to go with Matt. Matt Benson, born in Denver and is a graduate of Colorado State. I believe those are the Rams. He has spent, his first part was as an award-winning reporter for the Arizona Republic after serving at the Fort Collins, Coloradoan. He was actually the director of communications for Arizona Secretary of State Ken Bennett in 2010, and then went on to be the director of communications and the chief spokesman for Arizona Governor Janet Brewer. Matt's one of the Arizona leading figures in media relations and communications. He currently works for Veritas, LLC, and he's actually Scottsdale Chamber Vice Chair on the board of directors. Now, I want to say that Matthew here is an LD23 resident. He's not here to endorse my campaign yet. It could be a scoop later on. We don't know just yet. But he's also not here representing any of the clients for Veritas, and he's surely not representing the Arizona Chamber of Commerce. I'm just fortunate because I like having conversations. So full disclosure, me and Matt went out for a beer a while back before the pandemic, so I feel like I can call you Matt. Welcome to the program, Mr. Benson.
Thanks for having me. And Matt is fine. I appreciate it. That's the most esteemed introduction I've had in a while. So I appreciate it.
I work on that. I took your words. It sounds so good, right? I took some of your words right there. You are a wordsmith. And I said this before we got started. You're like one of the youngest godfathers of marketing and words that I've ever met. You're over 40, but gosh, you look like you're about 30. Good genes.
Yeah, 42 this year. So I appreciate that. Getting a little older every day.
Yeah. How are you and your family doing during this pandemic? Everything okay?
We're managing, doing this little broadcast from home, as you can see. And so just trying to stay safe and stay healthy. You know how it is.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to have some questions. We're going to have a conversation. It's just going to go back and forth. You just say whatever you want. Hopefully it won't be curse words. And if it is, that's on you, buddy. People out there watching on Facebook, the streaming part, type your questions into the chat. Put a question mark in front so Andy knows it right away. Can then copy and paste it into our little window here on Zoom. And hopefully, by the magic of technology, neither of us will freeze and we'll get the answers to you. How's that sound? Everybody good? Good. You know what? So many things are happening today. I mean, gosh, this is the longest year in 1 week I think we've ever had. Each week it gets longer and longer, the year. It's just amazing. But let's take today. First of all, so you're a wordsmith. You have worked for the biggest of people. I want to put you on to Guy Phillips. Here's a guy who came out and he's running now for his third opportunity to be on the city council. And he is one of those liberty people. I don't know if it's Tea Party anymore, but it's don't infringe on my rights. He really has a problem with wearing a mask. Well, he has a problem with anybody telling him to wear a mask or requesting him to wear a mask or masks. I don't know. It's a mask thing. That's the common denominator. So he had himself a little party with 100 of his friends out in Civic Center Mall saying, "Don't mask me." But then he got up there and he had his little playbook and it was all scripted. And he had the whole mask and he said the words, those 3 words. I want to ask you, if you're advising Mr. Phillips, what do you say? Because I haven't been satisfied with any of the apologies he's tried, and I've heard 3 of them so far.
Yeah, if I was advising him, I would advise him to discontinue his reelection campaign. Okay, for the greater good of the community. This is the second time in the last few months that he has created a national embarrassment for the city of Scottsdale. And now, with this protest event of sorts and him repeating twice, "I can't breathe," claiming he didn't realize that was the seminal phrase associated with the protest movement around, the death of George Floyd. It's all a little hard to believe. But here we are. And I just feel like, he just needs to be, I'm not asking for him to resign. The election is, a handful of months out, but he should step aside, I think, in terms of his reelection campaign and just be done with it. He's attempted to apologize a few times now, apparently not really able to get the words quite right. Had a bizarre press conference today at City Hall, which I don't think really assisted things either. So I think it's time for him to just kind of be done.
Yeah. And here, you know what? Let's put this one on the board. If you're scoring at home, Republican Matt Benson, Democrat Eric Kurland agree on this one full 100%. And I think you and I are not going to call this guy particularly racist. His words were racist. I don't know what's in his heart. But
Right.
what I do know is if you love this city and you're running to represent this city, it's no longer a personal choice where it's just you. You have now shamed the city. You've given it a black eye. This is going to cost people jobs by the way that we won't have as many visitors coming. The San Francisco Giants are a big backer of our economy with what they do. I just think you fall on your sword and you say something like, oh gosh, that was a really poor choice of words. It's not in my heart, but Scottsdale is. And in order for Scottsdale to move forward past this dark moment that I somehow created, I'm not going to run for re-election. Boom.
Agreed. And again, you'll recall it was just a couple months ago
COVID.
that he was in the news over this. He was referring to it as the Wuhan flu and the China flu and all of this. And he, had to apologize for that and wrote a big op-ed column in the Arizona Republic saying he didn't realize that was offensive either. And so there seem to be a lot of things that he says and does that he doesn't realize are problematic or racist. And again, it's, this is now the second time. I think it's enough.
Yeah. So you worked for Secretary Bennett, and that was like 2010, right? Secretary of State?
Yes.
About a decade ago.
Yes.
And so I was not running for political office there. I was still politically active. And I should say that I'm running for the District 23 House, and you are not endorsing me yet, right?
Correct.
Excellent. So I was pretty impressed with Ken Bennett when he was Secretary of State. And I thought he was a pretty straight shooter. He kind of, when you represent a seat that is for the whole state of Arizona, it seems like people seem to get a little bit more softer in their views, trying to represent everybody. But then it seemed like in 2018, I believe it was, when we had the Red for Ed and the governor, and I thought this was a political stroke of genius. You can help me if you think it's any different. When he came up with the 20 for 20 and he pivoted on dime and he took the air out of that whole thing, I was like, this guy's a genius. He has always been very good about, I think, putting his finger up there and checking the way the wind blows and going straight forth. He hasn't been so good during the COVID experience right now. But my point is this, Matt, what happened to Bennett when he started going out full far right and primarying Doug Ducey? Was that really him, or did he kind of see a political opportunity?
I think that the key word there in what you just said was primary. He recognized that this was going to be a primary campaign against the sitting governor. I think he decided wrongly that he had a lane and a possibility of winning that race against. Again, I don't understand what numbers he was looking at, but he clearly decided that there was room to run to the right of Doug Ducey in that Republican primary, and so that's what he attempted to do. I think what's unfortunate is that he alienated an awful lot of friends that he had on the right with that, and he ended up, obviously it went nowhere. And I think it caused a lot of long-term damage to him and to his reputation and his record, which I agree with you. I mean, look, this is somebody who had been, Senate president, on the Board of Regents, and he had held all of these various roles of esteem in this state and had friends on the left and the right and in the middle. And I think that gambit cost him some of that. And it's too bad. I feel badly about it.
Well, I know that people have short memories, but I think he's a young enough guy, but I think his political career is over with that. I mean, he ran for the governorship in 2014, got maybe 13% as the guy who he really was, I felt. and then try to pick up some other kind of personality that was just foreign to him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that he is an extremist in any sense of the word. I've known him a long time. I think Ken Bennett's a good guy. He has served our state well. I think our state is poor not to have him involved in public service in some way, shape, or form. But that's where we are. And it's 2020. I mean, he's been out of statewide office now for a number of years.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have a long memory, longer than a whole lot of other people. Hey, we're talking with Matthew Benson. He is the man about town. I think that's what you put on your profile, man about town. Really, he's got a resume that goes very long. Worked in the highest echelons of the Republican Party with some of the best people the highest people. Jan Brewer, Ken Bennett. He now works in corporate with Veritas. And you can ask him anything. Type it into the little part of Facebook comment section. We'll get it answered. Hey, following up then on news of the day. So we had another Supreme Court ruling, and we'll get to some of the other ones. But today's Supreme Court ruling, I don't know if it was a surprise. Let me kind of summarize it for people. It was basically said, and I believe it was in Colorado. Is it Colorado? What state was that? Montana. I'm sorry. So Montana had a thing where they were giving public dollars to private schools. But what they kind of said was, Montana said, we don't want to give it to religious schools. So they scrapped the whole thing, the whole program. It went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, hey, even though you scrapped the program, basically saying you have to put it back in there, if you give money to private schools, you have to give money to all private schools, whether they're religious or not. I don't think it's a secret. You do some work for the Charter Association. I'm really curious on how, I know it just happened, right? But how do you think this is going to play out? Because charter schools and traditional schools are both public schools. We have a very limited amount of dollars here in Arizona. How's this going to play out?
Well, and just to be clear, public charter schools, again, different than private schools, different than parochial schools.
Yes.
They're two different animals, right?
Right.
But be that as it may, basically what the Supreme Court said is that no state is required to provide public support for private schools. But once you cross that threshold, once you decide we as a state are going to do that, then you can't have a test that discriminates against a religious school, like a Catholic school. And so if you're going to provide public dollars to private schools, you have to make it available to all private schools. How does that play out? Well, that's really hard to say. It is possible in some states that have dipped a toe into this. They may look at this and say, well, then we're out because we don't want to do any of the religious thing. And so we're going to pull all money back from private schools. And it's very possible that you'll have a lot of other states that have some sort of public money made available to private schools, whether through STOs or other programs that decide this doesn't really change anything for them. And they just go marching down the road. Well, I'm not sure how this changes things in Arizona, to be honest.
It's very interesting because it could be that charter schools and traditional public schools, public charters, traditional public schools, the public schools that 95% of kids go to might actually, I'm just thinking out loud here, might actually team up together to try to fend off private schools taking a larger chunk of money. Because here's where I'm at. We've had the STOs, we've had private dollars going, public schools dollars going to privates. The enrollment for private schools over the 20 years has remained flat. Nothing has changed. The thought was we're going to give some kids that have no chance in life, we're going to give them this, they used the whole sob story. But those kids aren't really being served as intended, and the enrollment hasn't increased. It's not like this has really helped anybody other than the people who are currently using private schools. It's kind of welfare for the wealthy. How do they thread the needle going forward if the charter schools are going to be saying, hey, we want those dollars too? Because private schools are making the same argument as public charters. We're choice. We give everybody this chance. I think public charters give more of a chance than the private schools, but how do you see that? How would you advise going forward?
It's an issue that kind of divides, frankly, the choice movement in education. There are some charter folks, whether in Arizona or nationally, who view private schools as competition for like you say, scarce public dollars. But there are a lot of others who view, look, this is about choice. This is about the idea that if you're,
Whoa, just kind of poked me right in the head there.
sorry, I had something popped up on my screen. Technical difficulties.
Yeah.
But it's the idea that, look, a family should be able to pick the best school for them, whether it's public or private or homeschool or whatever the case may be. And there's a significant amount of the charter coalition that feels that way as well. Here's the ironic thing. I recognize that among folks who oppose charter schools, I would say 99% of them probably oppose even more vehemently private schools and the use of public dollars for private education. I would argue that the public charter movement in Arizona is what has kept private education in this state at such a small amount for so long, because people who want an alternative to a traditional district school, in Arizona at least, almost always pick a charter school, a public school. And I think that has kept the private school competition in this state restrained to a significant degree.
Okay, and you and I have had this discussion before. I want to be clear. I'm not against charter schools. I'm not against school choice. I think that every child deserves the best possible education. I am bothered by the way we fund education, because I think that opens it up to choice, because we fund it so small that we have these high class sizes. Within these high class sizes, we have a tough time differentiating the instruction for all these kids. So you get the band of kids that perhaps aren't having their needs met, and they need to have their needs met. So then they take themselves and they say, you know what, I'm going to go to Charter A down the block. Charter A down the block is serving Peggy and Sue and everybody else who wasn't getting served so well in my big 35K class. So we're going to go there. What bothers me, and you and I can argue about this, is that a lot of charters are not quite as forthcoming with information. I think they take public dollars but don't have the same public oversight. I think we need to have the same oversight. I think we have to have equal funding measures. I know, is that a smile? Equal funding measures. I don't think we should have overrides.
Yeah.
And I think we should be able, if someone's going to say, you know what, this charter is the best, then I think there should be some transportation and some food provided. Because don't come at me with those federal dollars if you're not going to do those federal things. Okay, so it's 517. Are you ready to endorse this candidacy?
We're going like this still. So.
Okay, Jay, then I'm going to go with you. I'm going to go with Jay Barbuto right here. You know he was coming out after you. Jay Barbuto has two questions.
Okay.
I'm going to ask the first one.
Okay.
Do you fully believe Jay Lawrence is the right fit for LD23? You do not have to answer all questions.
Yikes. Bringing the heat right off the bat.
Right. I thought it's Mariano Rivera right there.
You know, I like Representative Lawrence. I've known him a long time. I knew him back when he was on the radio. And got this fly driving me nuts here. We used to do the radio program from time to time, sort of like this. So yeah, I like Representative Lawrence, but you know, I'm not really talking candidates today. We're just talking issues. We're talking issues there.
Right, Jay. Settle it down, Jay.
Settle it down.
He does want to know though why. Hey, he says, why can't charter teachers unionize? First of all, I think they can unionize, but I think there's a little bit of union busting going on. Yeah.
There's no prohibition on it. They can do that if they want. I think there's a lot of teachers that choose to teach at a charter intentionally because maybe they don't want the whole union atmosphere. Maybe they want something different. You know, I can't put myself in their shoes, but I imagine there's a number of charter teachers who go to a charter school intentionally.
Yeah, no, hey, you know what? Probably one of the intentional reasons of going to a charter school is many of them don't pay into ASRS. So they see the money up front rather than the money later on. Do you know what the kind of percentage of charters that pay into ASRS?
I don't. I've got no idea.
Okay. See, I think ASRS, the Arizona State Retirement System, is one of the best things that's happening for education in Arizona. And I think we could leverage that to make this state one where teachers come from hire to retire. You know that it takes about $75 million a year to continually, each year, train teachers that come into this profession. We spin our wheels. Man, if we could just say, hey, where do we want to be in 20 years? What do we want to be when we grow up? We can have the whole system, top to bottom, soup to nuts. We could be the place. Hey, Jennifer McDowell, my friend Jay Mack, she lives in your neighborhood. She says, I see Democrats running her state legislature and congressional and Senate seats moving very far to the center. Meanwhile, so many of the leaders of the GOP seem to be moving further and further to the right. Do you think that's one of the reasons Arizona is turning more purplish?
I think where candidates are moving depends on where you sit. What is your own political perspective? My perspective is that you're seeing candidates on both the left and right running to the fringes. And some of that's not unusual because this is primary season and everybody's trying to make sure they don't get outflanked with their base. But I think it's hard for me to agree that the Democratic Party in this state is not moving to the left. I think it is moving to the left. I think the politics of the state as a whole are moving to the left, not blue, but closer to purple than certainly they've been in a number of years, certainly in the last decade plus.
Yeah. Well, for me, I think it's more of a divide on social issues. I think older people who are in the Republican Party are still hung up on some of those social issues. Let's talk about the other Supreme Court decision about LGBTQ plus not being able to discriminate against them in the workplace, but they can still be discriminated against in many other places. What do you think about either a statewide ordinance, a law that basically is a strong anti-discrimination law, or one even in our hometown of Scottsdale where it's been kind of bantied about a few times over the last 15 years?
Yeah, I'd be all for it.
Yeah.
And
so you're a younger guy.
I fully support the Supreme Court decision on this. I think it's a long time coming. I think it's atrocious that for so long somebody could be fired based purely on their sexual orientation. And I'm sure at some point we'll look back on that and say, what took so long? Now, look, like I say, I would support an ordinance at a city level or at a state level. I don't know if it's frankly necessary at this point, given that the Supreme Court decision makes this the law of the land. But, if this is a belt and suspenders approach, then I would support that.
Well, the law of the land is that you can't be fired. You can still be denied like a hotel or a meal or something.
More broadly in public accommodations. I hear what you're saying. And I would support that at a city level. It's been talked about at a state level also. I think it's a higher bar. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I think first things first, if we could get that into ordinance at a local level, I think that'd be a good place to start.
Yeah, I think that's good for business, my friend. I mean, you are on the Scottsdale Chamber. Have they taken a position at all? I mean, I know you're not representing the chamber, so it would be public.
No, I don't believe the chamber's taken a position on this, but I agree from a business standpoint. I think what you see among large employers in Arizona and nationally is a move toward exactly this sort of thing. The idea that there should be equality across the board and workers and customers shouldn't face any kind of discrimination based on their sexual orientation.
Wow. So let me see if I got this straight. Do you support more education funding, or do you think we're doing good?
Well, I do. I think the devil's in the details in terms of what that looks like.
Right. We got to get together on that. Okay. Do you, I want to ask you this one. Do you support anything in the way, how the whole outlaw dirty money, how they passed the ordinance down in Tempe, 91% of the vote. Do you support full disclosure of donations above like $500? Come on, Matthew.
I'm not supporting the outlaw dirty money thing. I think it's problematic at a state level. I mean, you're not going to get me on everything here, Eric. Come on.
Okay, I'll just, if you want to endorse me now, that's where I stand on that. I plan on doing that.
Sure.
I plan. Do you support background checks for gun
Now
purchases?
now outlaw dirty money. That's suspended, right? That campaign's not moving forward, right?
No, it is suspended. But I think one of the things that the state could do is grandfather the signatures in if they continue to go. But I would like to just refer it to the ballot and let the people decide. Tell you what, if that thing gets on the ballot, it's going to pass with 90% of the vote.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, yes, you do. Yes, you do, because it's passed everywhere else at 90% of the vote. Okay, you are a good man. You hide very well. Okay, Alex Baker, this is a great quote, a great question. What's a dark horse legislative district you think could flip in either R to D or D to R?
Oh, geez. I don't want to call out individual districts because I don't want to do that. Here's what I would say.
Hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you start counting with me? I'll start at 1, and then you go the next 2 steps. 1.
Here's what I'll do.
2, 3.
I will tell you, I think the House goes Democrat in November. I do think that happens. I don't think both chambers do, but I think the House is more likely than not. If I was a betting man, and I am, I would suggest the House goes D, the Senate stays R. We have split governance, cats
I'm
and
looking
dogs.
forward to split governance.
What's that?
I'm looking forward to split governance. I think that will usher in a new age for Arizona. I think one party rule is not good no matter what you have, D or R. Of course, it would be better D, but let's be real. We prove it.
So I once had this editor who was, a crusty old fellow, and he liked to say, it can always get worse. And so I've adopted that as a bit of a motto that it can always get worse. So split governance, I mean, could be worse.
I'll tell you what I see. I see that the Senate could be tied. I think you might be right. I think it might be a 16-14. I think the House goes 33-27. And I think Ducey, trying to polish up his image from COVID and everything, is going to try to find that middle because Trump is going to get waxed.
Well, I don't know. I mean, certainly things are not looking good at a federal level for Trump. But look, if we do have split governance between the 2 chambers, there's no question in my mind. Then you're going to have coalition style governance where Governor Ducey and a coalition of more moderate Republicans and Democrats, hopefully, ideally, that's what you would have come together to function. My concern would be that the 2 parties, that things are so polarized, and if Democrats took over the House, there'd be a lot of anger over the last 20 years of, them being out in the wilderness, and a lot of retribution, and it could be a recipe for dysfunction.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I think you'll be proud of your new representative in District 23 because he's already making connections with other Democrats saying, we can't go, oh, you did this to us for 25 years. Because somebody has to be the adults in the room. And if we want to be part of government here in Arizona, we have to do it this time. I would love to see open budget hearings, bring that back out, sunlight. I think it's horrible that they go into the basement and solve it with 4 people. I think we even have to look at committees having a ratio based on the membership in the House and perhaps every vice chair being of the minority party.
And I appreciate those ideas. And I think that if Democrats take over the House, I hope that way of thinking kind of rules the day, because I think it'd be a lot more productive for citizens and for Arizonans, which is ultimately, hopefully what this is all about is not just an election, but actually running the state.
Yes, exactly. Putting Arizona forward. I'll work with anybody who does that. I'll even work with you, Matt Benson. It's 5:29. I think we're going to get that endorsement in 1 minute, 60 seconds. Let's put it on the clock. No. Matt, how about we play a little game? I'm really happy that you came on the show. This has been a great conversation. I know that you are a little limited in what you can say. I know you get a little snarky on Twitter. I hope you don't get snarky with me because I was very nice with you. Although Andy said I was sassy today. I can take sassy. Okay, so I tried to play a little game with the people on the show, and the kids at home really love it. So if you could do a little 3-second delay before answering, they like to answer before, and you don't get any extra points if you just jump in.
Okay.
So we're going to play famous Matts and Matthews. Okay, I'm going to give you some hints. I think you're going to get these, and there's nothing too difficult. Okay, are you ready?
Ready.
Little 3-second delay. Okay, this guy, he's starting Good Will Hunting and Jason Bourne in Bourne Identity. 1, 2, 3.
Matt Damon.
Yeah, there you go. All right, you're hot. Okay, this guy was a casualty of the Me Too movement. Used to be on the Today Show until he started rubbing his female guests the wrong way.
Matt Lauer.
Very nice. Okay, I got a double Matt. I got a Matt and a Matthew. These two guys were on Friends. The one guy played Joey. The other guy was Chandler Bing.
Yeah, okay.
Joey's got like a French name.
Well, no. Well, it was David Schwimmer, right?
Yeah, no, he wasn't one of those two guys, though. His name doesn't start with Matthew.
It was the dumb guy. It was the dumb one.
Yeah, Matt LeBlanc.
LeBlanc. There you go.
Yeah, someone just said, duh. Remember, David Schwimmer does not start with Matt or Matthew.
I know, but that was the only name I could think of.
Okay, the other guy was Matthew Perry.
Okay. All right.
All right, let's get back to something. All right, so when you were just kind of graduating from college, this was like the funniest movie. This guy was in Something About Mary. He was in Wild Things, and one of my favorite novels that actually was turned into a movie, The Outsiders.
Yeah.
If I give you the letter of his last name, I think you can get it.
Okay. Matt
D.
Dillon.
Yes, there you go. It was
Yeah.
telekinetic right there.
I could see the mustache. I couldn't remember the name.
Okay. Yeah, right. And what about Mary? Great movie. Is that one of your favorites?
It's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. Okay, so this guy, he's a darling. He's a kisses up to Trump all the time. He's on Fox all the time. He's the U.S. rep from District 1 in Florida.
Gates.
Yeah, and he spells his name wrong. Aetz. Come on.
Yeah.
That thing switched around.
I think I answered that too fast, though. I forgot my 3-second delay.
Yeah, we're on a little delay. Okay, just a couple more. So this guy here, I'm going to do my my impression of him. Ready? All right, all right, all right.
Matthew McConaughey.
That was perfect. Okay, this is a little bit tougher.
Okay.
This is a mountain that straddles the border between Switzerland and Italy.
Oh, my gosh.
One of the Alps. Also, the name of a sundae at Baskin-Robbins when I was a kid. It had 18 scoops of ice cream on it.
It's got Matt in it?
Yeah! Starts with Matt.
Oh, the Matterhorn.
There you go.
All right.
Now you,
all right.
Now you see how, all right, last one. This is an easy one. We're going to sign off with this one. A bullfighter in Spain.
Oh, Matador.
That's the door, Matador. That's right. You got to get up out of here. All right. Thank you very much, Matt Benson. This has been a pleasure. If you want to campaign for me, I'll consider it. If you want to donate, it's Kurland23.com, and I will be looking for that check in the mail. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You're a great guest.